robot missions. How many of you have looked over the robot missions yet? I knew some of you would. I'm told that in some places near the first headquarters, the kids gather outside and try to get peeks in to see what the missions are going to be. I was looking at YouTube videos the other day where teams had built their models and were trying to guess what the missions were. And some of them they got right, some of them they got very, very, very wrong. Before we get started on the actual missions, I do want to tell you guys about a couple of changes this season that are important. Those of you who've done this before, it used to be there were limits on the types of sensors you could have on the robot. You could have one touch sensor, two light sensors, a sound sensor, or an ultrasound sensor. This year they've done away with that limitation. You can have, when your kids go to the competition mat, they can have 6 sensors with them. They don't judge what kind of sensors, whatever kind of sensors you want to use, whether they're sound, ultrasound, light. You can have 6 light sensors if you want. Color sensors, they are not pushing that at all. Guys, be careful of the cords back there. That's an important change for this season. Another change for this season, although I'm not completely sure it's a change, it may just be that we were all doing it wrong before, is that when you have a cargo that needs to come back to base, you have to wait till the cargo is all the way in the base before you grab the robot and get credit for that cargo. It used to be that whenever any portion of the robot came into base, you would reach out and grab it and pull it into base, and nobody would say anything to you about it. Now the complete cargo has to be in the base before you grab the robot, otherwise you get a touch penalty. Or if not a touch penalty, they take the cargo and put it back where it was, which doesn't do you any good at all. Or they take it off the board. It's not completely clear yet how that works. There are 15 missions this season. For those of you into statistics or combinatorics, that means that there are 1.3 trillion different ways to approach the order of your missions. With 15 missions, there are 15 factorial ways to do that. That's over 1.3 trillion ways to choose your missions. There are some natural organizations on the map, and we'll talk about those as we go on. First, the individual missions. I'm sorry, I just kicked somebody. Mission pollution reversal. The blue ball and the yellow ball, those represent one's heavy metal, one is, I forget, some other kind of pollution. Your goal here is don't do anything with them. Completely avoid them. As long as they are where they're supposed to be, you're going to get credit for that. By the way, you know how you always get a certain number of points when you start?
Yeah.
The rest of those points come from having the good bacteria. And those bacteria, by the way, are the touch penalties this year, but we'll get to that. So, leave the balls where they are. Don't knock them off. We have, and by the way, the models this year are so cool. We actually have a harvester and a truck and a trailer. This is really cool. I like this so much better than the syringe with wheels. With the harvester, your goal is simply to move the harvester. As you move the harvester, the ears of corn will pop out the back. You get 5 points for one or however many ears of corn are on the mat. One only is fine. You get the same number of points whether it's one or all of them are on the mat. The way that you get them out of the back is you have to push the harvester or pull the harvester or in some way make the harvester move so that it pops the corn out the back. However, it doesn't say that in the rules anyplace. If you, my interpretation, by the way, disclaimer, I don't do interpretations. They have no weight whatsoever and should be totally ignored probably. But my interpretation is if you, in some other way, pull an ear of corn out and it's on the mat, that's 5 points. If you get it back to base, or if you get any ear of corn back to base, that's 9 points. We have fish. Fish are awesome. I love this bit. Fish must be eaten or frozen immediately after being caught. I like that because I have this image of people catching fish and just biting into them as soon as they pull them out of the water. There are 3 big fish and a little fish. The 3 big fish that get back to base, those are worth 3 points each, but you can't disturb the little fish. It has to be in its starting position for those big fish points to count. The point here is you don't want to overfish and you don't want to be catching juvenile fish, right? So this keeps in line with first recognition of those sorts of problems in our lives. You have pizza and ice cream. They're on the standard rings that we've seen over the past few seasons. Your goal is to get those back to base. Those are worth 7 points each. And I would point out that they have the lifting rings, so do the rats. We'll get to the rats in a minute. Farm fresh produce, that is the truck here. And your goal is to get the truck back into base. I gotta tell you guys something. I tried to push this truck sideways last night. It will not push sideways. It's got rubber wheels, and the mat it's a different material this year in case you guys hadn't noticed. That truck will not go sideways. So you'll have to figure out a different way to get it into base besides just trying to punch it in.
Lift it up. Good stuff.
The other thing, and I'm not clear on this, I believe that the produce is supposed to still be in the truck. So if you tip the truck over, there's not been a ruling on that, right? So this is one of those disclaimer moments. But my interpretation would be that the produce needs to be in the truck. The goal is not just to get the truck back in the base. Okay, last season there were no points for leaving your robot in any particular place on the mat at the end of the game. This year it looks like at the end of the game, if your robot is touching that far wall down there, you'll get 9 points at the end.
So it should end there.
There's a sort of a point to this, something for you guys to think about. During the course of planning out what missions you're going to have, you should always maybe think in terms of having a little bit at the end where no matter where you wind up on the board, your robot turns and drives in that direction so that you can get those extra 9 points at the end. Even if your robot only takes 1 minute to complete all the rest of the missions, and you know that, still have it turn and head for that end and let it sit down there for the last minute and a half. I do have a quick story about that. Last season, my most experienced team with my most experienced kids at the competition table, their robot stalled on the board for some reason. They didn't touch it at the end because it was the very last mission. They didn't touch it, It got down to 2 seconds. One of them reached out and turned it off. And they got the touch penalty for that. Cooking time. All right, so you guys know that as typically there are some easier missions and then some harder missions. The next couple that we're going to talk about are among the more difficult missions. The cooking time is on that timer down there. And those of you in the back, you can't see it, but it's a flat timer. It's in the sort of kitchen area of the board. And your goal there is to, you need the pointer to be in the red zone. The point of that is, for food, from the point of view of food safety, you don't want to undercook your food, right? So this, first glance, this year we can use color sensors as color sensors. It's a colored dial, right? So maybe that's a place where color sensors are going to be useful. You'll also have to figure out how, I assume that there's going to be a randomized starting point for that pointer. You'll have to figure out how your robot can know when that pointer is in the red zone and how far to drive it till it gets in the red zone. So that one's going to be one of the more difficult missions, I think, although probably one of you kids out here has a brilliant idea right now that just is very simple that I've completely missed. I wouldn't even be vaguely surprised by that. Another difficult one is the temperature, the storage temperature bit. There's a thermometer down here that has a post sticking out the back of it. So on one side of the thermometer there's a lot of red, right? And that's the default position, so it's a high temperature. you need to move that so that the part of the display with a little bit of red is showing. The interesting bit of this is that to move that, you have to rotate the lever on the top, and the lever doesn't rotate smoothly. There are bumps, right? And remember, you're not allowed to destroy the models, right? You can't just go up there and push as hard as you want. You don't want to destroy the models. So think about that when you're thinking about attachments for this thing. Pest removal. I like this. I'm gonna read from this. Some animals carry many, many germs that don't bother them, but which are really bad for us. I love the phrasing here. And some animals have extremely unclean habits, but enough said about that. Those are the rats. Now, my first thought when I saw this was, what we want to do is we want to make all the rats go on the other guy's board. Okay, this is the team. This is the what do you call it? Shared mission between your team that's competing and the team that's beside you that's competing. Last year it was the patent grab. You wanted to rush out and grab the patent as quick as possible. This year you want to go out and get the mice or rats. But you don't want to leave the rats on the board. You want to bring them back to base where you can presumably keep them from contaminating everything. So what, did you have a question? Or?
Yeah, do you have to get both rats or just the one that
Good question. They're 15 points each. But now here's one of those things, I don't know how to interpret this. In the rules it says they're 15 points each, but only for you. Yeah, it says rats in your base are worth 15 points each to you only. I don't know if that means that each of you gets a rat, that you both get 15 points. I don't know if that means that if you get, you know, if you talk with them and, well, I'm not sure exactly how to interpret that one. But my take on it right now is that you rush out there and grab those rats as quick as you can, get them back to base, and you've got 15 points each. And you're nodding. Do you have knowledge of this one?
It's 15 points for each rat. If your team, back in the old days, there's some games where if the shared thing was done, both teams
got it.
The points.
Okay.
In this game, you want to try to get to both of the rats, so you will get the 30 points.
Great.
And they will not.
Thank you. That's the benefit of having the guy that's running FLL in the state here with you. So you see that they're on these two chutes that are on either side of a truck or a pier with a truck on it, a trailer on it. One of those, it's kind of hard to tell from, the models have been moved around a little bit, but one of those rats is on your side of the board and easy to get to. The other rat, you have to push in on something to raise the chute and have the rat slide back down. That's a cool mission. I love that because it's got the carrier ring on it. So can't you just see pushing that thing and having it slide right down onto some sort of an arm or something to carry it back to base? I love that one. Refrigerated ground transport, that's the trailer. Getting the trailer back to base is worth 12 points, or, all right, this is one of those that's hard. The trailer with meat inside and no germs inside, so there's a germ in there, there's at least one germ in there right now, right? So the trailer with meat inside and no germs inside, with any of its wheels touching the port dock, that's that gray area, is worth 20 points and 6 additional points for each big fish inside. However, the baby fish still has to be in its little baby fish place. So that's a lot of points. When you add all that up, that's, what is that? That's 38 points right there. So that's a pretty good mission, but you'll need to read through it a couple times so it makes sense. And there's one coming up that you'll have to read through 20 times and it still won't make any sense to you. I mean, it does. It actually makes sense, but when you read it, it's like, what? Groceries. Do we have groceries down here someplace? Yeah, there we go. Each grocery unit is worth 2 points if it's on that table. And this is important. This is a little different from past years, so pay attention to this. You need to put the groceries on the table, but you only get points if the table is supporting all of the groceries weights and no weight other than grocery units and the flours are on the table. In the past, a lot of teams will put things onto a delivery tray or some kind of a cart that they're going to leave in place. You can't do that with this,
You gotta drop
right? Only the groceries, not a carrying device, can be left on the table. This is going to make it way more difficult, and it gets worse in just a minute. So we have, the next one is mission disinfect. These, I don't know what these are called dispensers. These things that look like trapdoor thingies here.
The giant hopper.
Yeah, exactly.
Hoppers.
So these are dispensers, and in these are bacteria and viruses. And although I don't know this for sure, I believe, do we have those? Does anybody have?
Here's a
I need a bacteria. Can somebody hold it? No. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry, it's right in front of me. So,
The blue one.
I believe that these are the bacteria, these little blue things. Is that, do you know, Eric, is that correct? Yeah. So I took that because the little black thing's supposed to be like a flagella or something to drive it along. So you've got bacteria and you've got viruses.
Bacteria is good for the virus.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Okay. Remember my disclaimer. Right, so I actually had that backwards. So here's the deal with the bacteria and the viruses. Empty dispensers are worth 12 points each if there's no bacteria left on the mat out here. And they're worth 7 points each if any bacteria is touching the mat outside the base. That part's pretty easy to get. You want to empty the dispensers and get them out and not dump them out on the mat. Not have any bacteria out on the mat.
Drive in with have your robot drive in with a carrying device that has doors at the bottom.
Right. Like a hopper from a farm or something, right?
Yeah, with the combine.
So that part's easy. Now, this is called mission hand wash bacterial. Bacteria in or on the sink, that's almost dead center right down there. It's important, note that the location is sort of central. You're going to find out why in just a second. Bacteria in or on the sink are worth 3 points only if all of the following are true. All were in base at some time prior to being on the sink. That means you've got to empty the hopper and go back to base, right? While between the base and the sink, one and only one of the bacteria are in motion at any point in time. On the video, in my interpretation, that means that you've got to carry them out there one at a time to drop them in the sink. Think about how you would do that. All equipment involved in each bacterium's trip to the sink was completely in base at the beginning and completely out of base when it reaches the sink. That means you can't leave some long trailing thing back to the base, like some sort of a transport device to transport the bacteria or something like that. You can't do that. It has to go all the way out and down. And again, only the bacteria. You can't have a carrying tray or anything like that on there. And that's encapsulated here. The sink is supporting all of the weight of every germ and not supporting any weight except germs. Bacteria getting to the sink in any other way are given back to the team in base by the referee. So you're not really penalized, but it doesn't help you out either. Yeah.
So if we were to attach a tray to the back of a robot so that we can put stuff back in and then a robot can take it back out, so would that be considered a carrying tray? We weren't going to put it in the sink.
As long as you don't leave it in the sink, you're all
If you're
right.
carrying back.
So that's kind of the direction. But remember, it's one bacteria at a time. You can't just load them all onto the tray and dump them all at once. It's one bacteria at a time.
How many
Is
are
that,
there?
is that right here?
I don't think so. It will take all the time, right?
Maybe you want to post that and see what the Scott has to say.
So, if you guys, when I'm done here, if you want to take a look at the video, just come up and touch the screen. It'll start playing, and you'll see they have a robot carrying, the little toy wind-up robot, carrying one bacteria at a time. So my interpretation was that, but when you realize that that's kind of centrally located, and then it's on your way to the table and on your way down to the restaurant, it's not far from the rats or from this hopper. Well, you'd have to come back to base after the hopper anyway. You can sort of think that maybe you just have something that
Combined.
drops it in every time you go past. You know, drops one bacteria in every time you go past. At any rate, that's only 3 points for each of those, right? So that's not a huge number of points.
But when they all add up,
Yeah, but when they all add up.
You gotta say.
All right, hand wash, viral, completely different. Viruses are almost always in need of a host, blah, blah, blah. It's actually, reading this stuff is great. You should read through this stuff. It's all available on the first site, and it'll be on our site by the end of the weekend. You get points for one of these only. 1 to 8 of the viruses in the sink, you get exactly 6 points. It doesn't matter if it's 1 virus or 6 viruses
That makes sense.
or 8 viruses, you get 6 points. 9 or more viruses, you get the full 13 points. More than 9, you don't need to worry about. And then the last one is good bacteria. This is cool. First, always, whenever they do this, they make sure that they get some of the deeper understanding about what they're talking about out to the kids. Here, they're making sure that everybody knows that there are good bacteria as well, that we exist as a sort of a macroorganism that's made up of lots of smaller bits, including the viruses that live on and in our body. Yellow bacteria are worth 6 points each in base, but those are your touch penalties. If you touch the robot when it's, as they're calling it now, active, when it's out on the board and no part of it is in the base, you lose one of the good bacteria. There are 12 good bacteria. That's 72 points. And the points, I don't think I mentioned the points for the pollution. Those are 4 points each. So that's 80 points you're guaranteed if your robot never gets out of base. And I have to tell you that I have, with my own teams, experienced times when we got less than the default number of points available. So, but keep that in mind. If you go to competition and you're not prepped or anything and you really don't feel like you're ready, especially when you come to RoboStock, our practice tournament, you don't need to be in any particularly good shape when you get to us. And if your robot just sits there in base, you got 80 points right there. And you're probably in the running for a trophy, the way RoboStock goes. So, do we have any questions about the missions that I can possibly answer? Yes.
So, farm animals have no use whatsoever.
No, they are in here. I might have skipped that one. So yeah, they're in here someplace. No, I don't think they're the meat yet. I think in the future they may be intended to be the meat. Well, it's in here someplace. And I'll figure that out. And when we go over to the other session, I'll tell you guys what the